remember that I have worked days and nights non-stop for the first 10 years, and at that time I was not obsessed with life-work balance. I just worked to make a name for myself, build a career, and I was aware of why all this was necessary.
Tolkyn has always been a role model for us since childhood. As an elder sister, as a leader, her leadership skills were noticeable since childhood. We repeated her. She was an excellent student. She gained a scholarship and entered the university. She studied abroad. That's all. Her first steps, which we followed and tried to repeat, to take the path of leadership.
I have very strict parents. My dad brought me up in such a way that if you fall down, you don't cry, you get up and go on, and it was always like that. And I remember very clearly how he told me, "You will become president, you should be number one, you must graduate from school with excellent marks." And these were the leadership qualities that were instilled by my father. I think I had them from the cradle. And accordingly, I have always felt responsible to my family, to my parents, to my younger siblings. I have a brother and sister. It seems to me that this guardianship is still with us. I still care much about my brother and sister and think that I am a role model for them.
She helped us with mathematics. She taught us how to read books. In times when we were school children, it was quite obvious that we had strong relationship. We sat around her reading books. She had a poor eyesight when she was a child, but she loved reading. We would sit around her and look at her and listen to everything she was reading, and we were so happy.
For my brother, I have always been a strict sister, as well as for my sister. I always demanded the same from them as from myself. I remember very well how I forced them to read, how I demanded that they had only excellent marks at school. Everything that was demanded of me, I demanded from them.
We're three of siblings in family. I have a young sister, and we have always been very close. Grew up together and communicated very closely, and very attached to each other. And I would not say that she was strict. All of this together.
We are all the main characters in our films. But if you think about, do I do what I want? Here is my point where I am. Is this the point where I want to be, or am I bigger? It took me no less than 20 years to get to the point where I am now. 20 years is actually from my student's bench to my current position in an IT company. Naturally, this is a corporate world where there is very high competition, where competencies and knowledge are valued. That is, you need to have a number of skills, and this is not exactly what they teach at universities or at school, at least in our time. Now, 20 years later, I can say that I do not feel such an attitude in my case. Moreover, I would say that women in Kazakhstan, in Central Asia, probably have an advantage. After all, this is the East and Eastern energy. It allows and helps women to build a dialogue more flexibly, more smoothly, and in difficult situations, when there are problems, a woman can smooth out these corners, while a man can respond quite sharply, and it is likely that the problem remains unsolved with such an attitude.
В то время как мужчина довольно резко может ответить, и вполне вероятно, что ситуация не решится на этой встрече.
This oriental flexibility allows women to be more loyal and more effective in business.
Быть более лояльными и более эффективными в бизнесе. Мужчинам одинаково сложно.
It is equally difficult for men, especially in the corporate world, where you can say business sharks work. We achieve multi-million-dollar contracts. These are programs for automating very large businesses and so on. And in this business, skills are still important. The ability to properly build these processes, communicate with people and achieve goals.
There is one customer who we're working with together. It is such a pair management of one large holding, and I can say that here we complement each other. Here my straightness and her flexibility somehow coexist. Eastern wisdom of Tolkyn is seen in the same negotiations, in the same communication with the client.
Общество по-разному относится к женщинам и мужчинам.
Society treats women and men differently. And when I started working as a marketing specialist 20 years ago, then as a partner manager in an IT company, in a large IT company in the Central Asian market, I remember very well this biased attitude towards me 20 years ago.
Предвзятое отношение ко мне, ну вот тогда, 20 лет назад.
When a young girl in a suit wearing heels came in a large company in Tashkent, and adult men were so surprised to see me. I remember this moment well. Nevertheless, I did my job. I prepared very well. I made this presentation. At the end of the meeting, they even shook my hand. Now it's funny to remember all this. It happened 20 years ago. Later, we made contract. I remember it was a contract worth more than $1 million, and for me, it was a huge achievement.
Для меня это было огромное достижение.
Tolkyn is a very modest person, and it's hard for her to talk about her achievements and her success. Why is this happening? Well, there are many different reasons for this, but often it comes from childhood. Well, secondly, mentality, but mostly from childhood. We are told it's good and right to be modest. Sit down, keep your head down, sit quiet, you can't stand out. We are learning to live, we are learning to speak, we are learning to manifest ourselves without attracting attention, because if you are like this, if you like this, then you will either get hit on the head, or the teacher will tell you, adults are speaking, don't disturb us, be quiet. We who were born in the Soviet Union time, we were brought up in such a way that there is no need to complain that everything is difficult in life. If you fall, you have to get up and move on. That is, we were brought up from childhood to be strong, and all women from the post-Soviet countries, I would say, are just heroes. Every second or third women are heroes, heroes of our time.
Герой нашего времени. Она и детей
She raises children, she works, she can do sports, she is everywhere. She manages to do everything. In the morning, she is in the kitchen, in the afternoon, she is at work, in the evening, she is a wonderful mom. Our realities force us to become like this, and it seems to me that the East has also added an Eastern mentality to this. The fact that we were brought up a little differently from childhood than in other countries, and accordingly, a woman here is the embodiment of both femininity and strength at the same time.
Женщина здесь воплощение и женственности, и силы одновременно.
Тяжело, конечно, менять любую сферу.
Of course, it is difficult to change any sphere where men are rightfully dominant, as it is featured in our culture. But I know one thing. Tolkyn is a very determined person, and if she starts to do something, she gets the job done to the end, and always leads in this process and achieves her goal.
Лидирует и добивается поставленной цели.
Наступило время, когда они гендерные.
Nowadays is the time when there is no gender inequality, but the struggle of competencies, we all have equal opportunities. Moreover, the state helps women. There are a lot of programs on women's leadership and so on. We have equal access to education, and I know a lot of women who have achieved very great heights.
Образованию. Я знаю очень много женщин, которые добились больших высот.
Her perseverance is shown also in sports, because she started running literally a few years ago, and she has achieved big results, and she also promotes a healthy lifestyle. And it seems to me this is also a very important element of leadership. She's a woman in technology, and she promotes, she's ready, or openly talks about some technological solutions, the importance of doing sports. I think this is a manifestation of leadership on her part.
О каких-то технологических решениях, о важности там заниматься спортом, да, мне кажется, это и является проявлением лидерства с ее стороны.
Спорт — это дисциплина.
Sport is a discipline. You're more concentrated. Well, plus in sports you will find like-minded people who will share common values.
Наверное, примером для нее.
I was probably an example for her, because in 2 years I participated a lot in competitions. She saw it and got motivated, and maybe she thought it is time to start when I participated in the marathon, and she saw it and saw what result can be achieved and what effect sports gives. Even to this day, we compete with each other. We show our results to each other. We rejoice for each other. We participate in international marathons. We participate in Ironman. We help each other to grow further.
Друг другу как раз-таки помогать и дальше расти.
Мой брат, например, меня привел в спорт.
My brother, for example, got me into sports. He motivates me every day. He has English lessons at 6 a.m. At 7, he is already running somewhere. At 8, he comes into the office. There are no miracles in sports. Sport is a discipline, sometimes genetics and constancy. My brother introduced me to the sports, motivated me to the first race, and I realized that I liked it. And after a while, I realized that I was getting it, as if it was given to me by nature.
Через какое-то время, через 2-3 месяца, я поняла, что мне это получается. что мне это дано
And after
природой.
1.5 years, I took some prize-winning place, and I understand that really, if you invest in it, you can achieve something. And after a while, I ran a marathon 2 years later. And now I'm preparing for my 6th marathon in Chicago.
И вот
It
я
would
уже
seem an
готовлюсь к своему
unrealistic story to
6-му
start
марафону
playing
в
sports at the age of 35 without having any sports background. But on the other hand, when you are surrounded by such people, when they motivate you, when they share their inspiration, their achievements every day, what gives them energy in life, then you're becoming the same.
своим вдохновением, своими достижениями и тем, что их держит на плаву, то есть дает им энергию по жизни, то ты становишься таким же.
Если ты
If you love this, it won't be difficult for you. You will be happy to do it. But of course, Tolkyn is a fighter. For 3 years, she hasn't missed a single workout. It doesn't matter. It's cold or rainy, getting up at 5 in the morning, it doesn't matter. This suggests that she has the character of a fighter. She goes towards the goal.
Tolkyn wants to popularize the idea of sports, that it's important to do sports, that it's never too late to start whether you're 35, 40 or 50, and make your social networks become a big tribune to reach a huge number of people.
У меня есть рубрика.
I have a column. It is called The Pride of the Country. Once every 2 weeks, I invite interesting and unique people in Kazakhstan who are doing sports.
И
I realize that our society knows very little about such people, that we need to talk about them. I'm talking about a woman, Duza Mavlutova. She's 86 years old and she started running only at 70.
ей 86
She still works as a cleaner now. You know, this is physical labor. She cleans garbage on the street every day, but at the same time, a person does not miss a single city race. She has already become a legend. She goes out and runs this 10 kilometers, 1.5 hours uphill. You see, people can't walk up from square because it's hard, but she runs into this hill. And so every time when I ask her what motivates you, she tells me movement is life. When I communicate with such people and they tell me about a beautiful old age,
И вот когда я
and I ask them what they would change if they returned 30 years ago. For me, this is the strongest motivation.
30 лет назад, для меня это сильнейшая мотивация. Идеальных людей не бывает.
There are no perfect people, and if you go into this perfectionism, you will never get any balance. We can't be perfect mom and the perfect employee and the perfect wife in all respects. It is impossible. There is a certain level of balance that suits a person, and when you reach this level, you feel happy. For myself, I clearly understood this when I was already relatively well settled in work. I realized that my career had taken the right vector. I started building a family. I have children. Then I realized that family and children are more important and have more priority for me in this life. And that's when the priorities were changed for me a little. Now I know for sure that I will not be able to devote more than a certain number of hours to work, because I would like to spend the rest of my time with my family. There is a very clear time management.
Больше определенного количества часов, потому что остальное время я бы хотела провести именно с семьей. Появляется очень четкий тайм-менеджмент.
Tolkyn, да, она с точки зрения, скажем так, баланса, вот именно
In my opinion, Tolkyn has achieved work-career-family balance. As a mother and as a spouse, she has achieved a lot or is achieving some heights, and at the same time, she remains successful at work.
Держит тот же уровень и в работе.
I am an ordinary person who wants to live a decent life. I would like to raise kind and conscientious children.